Quaid Azam Part 431. The main clauses of the Lucknow Pact were: number 1, there shall be self-government in India. Number 2, Muslims should be given 1/3 representation in the central government. Number 3, there should be separate electorates for all communities until a community demanded for joint electorates. Number 4, system of weightage should be adopted. Number 5, the number of members of Central Legislative Council should be increased to 150. Number 6, at the provincial level, 4/5 of the members of the Legislative Council should be elected and 1/5 should be nominated. Number 7, the strength of the provincial legislative should not be less than 125 in the major provinces and from 50 to 70 in the minor provinces. Number 8, all members except those nominated were to be elected directly on the basis of adult franchise. Number 9, no bill concerning the community should be passed if the bill is opposed by 3/4 of the members of that community in the Legislative Council. Number 10, terms of the Legislative Council should be 5 years. Members of the Legislative Council should themselves elect their president. Number 12, half of the members of the Imperial Legislative Council should be Indians. Number 13, Indian Council must be abolished. Number 14, the salaries of the Secretary of State for Indian Affairs should be paid by the British government, not from the Indian funds. Number 15, out of 2 under secretaries, 1 should be Indian. Number 16, the executive should be separated from the judiciary. Although this Hindu-Muslim unity was not able to survive for more than 8 years and collapsed after the development of differences between 2 communities after the Khilafat movement, yet it was an important event in the history of South Asia. It was the first time when Congress recognized Muslim League as the political party representing the Muslims of the region. As Congress agreed to separate electorates, it in fact agreed to consider the Muslims as a separate nation. They thus accepted the concept of two-nation theory. E.S. Montague was the Secretary of State for India from 1917 to 1923, while Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of 1916 to 1921. It was during this time that the reforms of 1919, commonly known as Montague-Chelmsford reforms, were introduced in India. Montague met the Indian leaders to discuss the prevailing political conditions in India. His meetings with Jinnah have been described in his diary. And it went along, and Dadabhai Naoroji, the formative years, Riaz Ahmed, National Institute of Historical and Cultural Research in Islamabad. Quaid Azam Jinnah, the formative years. Dadabhai Naoroji, the grand old man of India, had intended to spend the better part of his life in England trying to influence the public opinion on Indian self-rule. Feroz Shah Mehta, a nationalist, became the president of the Indian National Congress in 1890. To Gokhale, the youngest of 3, Naoroji and Mehta, were heroes worth emulating. Naoroji, Mehta and Gokhale had been connected to Jinnah at one time or the other. Jinnah started his political career as Naoroji's private secretary. His legal and political career was helped in no small measure by Mehta. In the early part of his political career, Jinnah was also known as a Muslim Gokhale. In August 1917, Gandhi visited London, where he praised the British government's foreign policy, urged Indians to think imperially, and did a brief stunt as recruiting sergeant for one of the Indian regiments. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, 1866 to 1915, the Congress veteran, 2 days before his death, is said to have prepared a pencil draft of which 3 copies were made, one each being sent to Lord Wellington, Feroz Shah Mehta and the Aga Khan. It saw the light of the day posthumously in 1917 when it was published by Aga Khan in London. Srinivas Sastry in India at the time of Montague Declaration, also called Bukale's political will and testament. It impelled upon the British government to announce the recommendations on administrative reforms voluntarily and at once. In case the British government granted provincial autonomy to India, it would have implied that governors would have executive councils on which Indians would be appointed.